we go from here? How do we overcome, adapt, and thrive in a time of COVID? How do we look beyond the chaos that's occurring today to gain confidence in the future? I'm Andy Busch, and my job right now is to answer these questions for you. In this short video, we're going to answer where do we go from here and explore COVID-19 has changed everything we knew about food. Supply, delivery, consumption of food have all been impacted. You know, it's hard to quantify the fear that occurred during the initial stages of the outbreak and, of course, during the economic shutdown. There was alarm, confusion, if not outright panic. Questions like, hey, if we shut down the economy, does that mean grocery stores won't get supplies? And of course, even if the grocery store was supplied, did anyone really want to run out and make additional trips if you would catch the virus? I mean, these are why we saw a run on shelf-stable foods like pasta, cereal, and soup. Grab as much as you can and don't forget the toilet paper, if you can find it. Shoppers stockpiled these items to make sure that they could feed their families. On the other hand, perishables like lettuce, fruit, vegetables saw major declines in sales. So much so that farmers began to plow under their crops and dairy farmers dumped their milk in fields because they couldn't sell them in the stores. I mean, this was creepily similar to what happened in the 1930s during the Great Depression. But we also saw the U.S. running out of meat products for a while. That's crazy. But the reason for that was closures of meat processing plants after employees got the virus. Breakfast fans of bacon and eggs saw their favorite combo prices soar. Bacon went up about 12%, and eggs, well gosh, eggs tripled in price as chicken farmers struggled as well. Well, after shutting down the economy for 3 months, government officials began the process of reopening. The mighty engine of the U.S. economy roared back to life to produce things like PPE gear for frontline medical and essential workers. It's great news. I mean, Ford repurposed airbag materials for medical gowns, and GM began to make ventilators. And here, just outside of Chicago, Hart, Schaefer, and Marks began to make face masks. Also, better medical therapies were developed. And as proof of that, we've seen a surge in COVID cases, but we haven't seen a commensurate surge in deaths. And that's great news. As well, social distancing practices were developed for meat processing plants and other food production facilities to reduce the risks of COVID spreading. Government stimulus programs through the USDA began to provide funding for ag companies hurt by the shutdown for both perishable and non-perishable foods. Now, all of this stabilized food production and provided consumers with the food they wanted when they wanted it. So where do we go from food? Well, 3 areas have changed, right? Production, distribution, and consumption. Okay, COVID has changed the way we not only bring food to our tables, but what food we bring, how we bring it, and how we prepare it. We've had to overcome the shutdown by adapting. That's really cool. If you're not going into the office, if restaurants are shut down, if schools and universities are remote learning with no dining halls, then the food world shifts to the home and the apartment and the kitchen, right? And that means demand at the grocery store surges and food businesses gotta scramble to keep up. It can mean shortages of things like baking products like flour. It can mean higher prices for meat at times. It can lower profits for farmers who used to serve restaurants and schools, obviously. But this is also the opportunity to adapt to these big changes in consumer behavior. So what are consumers buying now? Well, like trends in work from home and technology, the healthy eating trend has been supercharged. Also, organic and vegan food demand is increasing with meat alternatives. Baking, as I mentioned, raged across the country and personally contributed to my weight gain. There's been a huge rise in the viewership of home cooking shows. I mean, even Selena Gomez has a home cooking show. More men cooking, more ordering online, more food deliveries from both grocery stores and restaurants. All these things are happening. But it's hard to say if these adjustments will be permanent or just a fad until we get a vaccine. But they are driving change now. And these changes also have big ramifications for the delivery of food. Now, safety and hygiene at the store, truck, and refrigerated warehouses, are all part of a big area of focus to stop the spread of the virus. So how food delivered it directly to the consumer has also evolved. Whether it's touchless pizza or Uber Eats or leaving food on your doorstep, consumers have driven demand for these services. Domino's has been a big winner and an example of how to overcome and adapt and thrive during COVID. All of this drives what producers must do to adapt to these changes. Another big challenge is climate change. Now, this is forcing farmers in the West to adapt with drought-resistant plants and better water management, obviously. In the Midwest, farmers are dealing with derecho storms and floods. But this is also attracting a lot of investment from ESG funds. Again, the opportunity is if you can adjust. Now, one of the trends I see supercharged in food production, of course, is the use of robots. Now, these range from drones collecting crop data to small wheeled trucks that can fit in between plants to spray and weed to even machines that can pick fruit. Now, these machines help reduce the risk of COVID spreading among workers and help farmers be more productive. But they could come at the cost of replacing some of those workers eventually. All of this underscores how food production, distribution, and consumption are so closely tied. A change in one part drives big changes in the other. COVID has created big changes to the structure and the delivery of food as consumers shift their preferences. To be sure, not all outcomes are healthy, but we have the best food production system on the planet, and we feed a lot of the world. Our farmers overcome, adapt, and thrive better than anyone. And that's the best news. Okay, next week we'll cover planes, trains, and automobiles to answer the question, where do we go from here on transportation? Click on the button below to subscribe and get them every week. Click on the video below to get prepared for the opportunities that are waiting for you, and I'll see you in the next one.